There's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve. There's an infinite amount of cash at the Federal Reserve.
Good morning, Bitcoin. Today is Tuesday, June 2nd, 2020. My name is Thomas Hunt, and this is the World Crypto Network. The price of Bitcoin is suddenly down 1.1% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,510, a high of 10,398, and a low of 9,150. That's $1 for 10,526 Satoshis. Don't think I changed the name of the show. We're doing yesterday's shows again. Oh well. Volume was incredibly high for a Tuesday, so high that it might be an error in the coding here, but it says 29,852 Bitcoins traded hands. That's a lot. Market continues to lean margin long, down a little from a high of 83% to 80%, still remaining long. Bitcoin dominance is up slightly at 66.08%. Be sure to push that like button, push the share button, so that more people will know about this show. I can't quite find the quote I want from this book, but we'll give it a shot with what we've got. Let's see. Said Doremus, yes, I agree. It's a serious time. With all the discontent there is in this country to wash him into office, Senator Windrip has got an excellent chance to be elected president next November. And if he is, probably his gang of buzzards will get us into some war, just to grease their insane vanity and show the world that we're the huskiest nation going. And then I, the liberal, and you, the plutocrat, the bogus Tory, will be led out and shot at 3 a.m. Serious, huh? Rats, you're exaggerating, said R.C. Crowley. Dorminus went on. If Bishop Prang, our Savernola in a Cadillac 16, swings his radio audience and his League of Forgotten Men to Buzz Wintrip, Buzz will win. People will think they're electing him to create more economic security. Then watch the terror. God knows there's been enough indication that we can have tyranny in America. The fix of the southern sharecroppers, the working conditions of the miners and the garment makers, and our keeping Mooney in prison so many years. But wait till Wintrip shows us how to say it with machine guns. Democracy, here and in Britain and France, it hasn't been so universal. As a sniveling slavery as Nazism in Germany, such an imaginating, hating, faristic materialism as Russia. Even if it has produced industrialists like you, Frank, and bankers like you, R.C., and given you altogether too much power and money. On the whole, with scandalous exceptions, democracy has given the ordinary worker more dignity than he ever had. That may be menaced now by Windrip, all the Windrips. All right, maybe we'll have to fight paternal dictatorship with a little sound patricide, fight machine guns with machine guns. Wait till Buzz takes charge of us. A real fascist dictatorship. Nonsense, nonsense, snorted Tasbroke. That couldn't happen here in America. Not possibly. We're a country of free men. The answer to that, suggested Doremus Jessup, if Mr. Falk will forgive me, is, the hell it can't. Why, there's no country in the world that can get more hysterical, yes, or be more obsequious than America. Look how Huey Long became absolute monarch over Louisiana, and how the Right Honorable Mr. Senator Barrialis Windrip owns his state. Listen to Bishop Prang and Father Coughlin on the radio. Divine oracles to millions. Remember how casually most Americans have accepted Tammany grafting and Chicago gangs and the crookedness of so many President Harding's appointments? Could Hitler's branch, or Windrip's, be worse? Remember the Ku Klux Klan? Remember our war hysteria when we actually called sauerkraut Liberty cabbage? And when somebody actually proposed calling German measles Liberty measles? And wartime censorship of honest papers? Bad as Russia? Remember our kissing the feet of Billy Sunday, the $1 million evangelist, and of Amy McPherson, who swam from the Pacific Ocean clear into the Arizona desert and got away with it? Remember Viola and Mother Eddie? Remember our Red Scares and our Catholic Scares? When well-informed people knew that the OGPU were hiding out in Okaloosa, and the Republicans campaigning against Al Smith told the Carolina Mountaineers that if Al won, the Pope would illegitimize their children? Remember Tom Helfand and Tom Dixon? Remember the hick legislators in certain seats with obedience to Williams Jennings Bryant, who learned his biology from pious old grandma, set up shop and for scientific experience, and made the whole world laugh itself sick by forbidding the teaching of evolution? Remember the Kentucky night riders? Remember how trainloads of people gone to enjoy lynchings? Not happen here? Prohibition? Shooting down people just because they might be transporting liquor? No, that couldn't happen in America. Why, where in all of history has there ever been a people so ripe for a dictatorship as ours? We're only now ready to start on a children's crusade, only of adults, right now. And the right Reverend Abbots Winthrop and Prang are really ready to lead it. Well, what if they are? Protested R.C. Crowley. It might not be so bad. I don't like all these irresponsible attacks on us bankers all the time. Of course, Senator Winthrop has to pretend publicly to bawl the banks out, but once he gets into power, he'll give the banks their proper influence in the administration and take our expert financial advice. Yes, why are you so afraid of the word fascism, Doremus? Just a word, and might not be so bad with the lazy bums we got panhandling relief nowadays and living on my income tax and yours. Not so worse to have a real strong man like Hitler or Mussolini, like Napoleon or Bismarck in the good old days, and have 'em really run our country and make it efficient and prosperous again. In other words, have a doctor who won't make any back check, but really boss the patient and make him get well, whether he likes it or not. Yes, said Emil Stauber. Didn't Hitler save Germany from the Red Plague of Marxism? I got cousins there, I know. Said Doremus, as Doremus often did say it. Cure the evils of democracy by the evils of fascism. Funny therapeutics. I've heard of their killing syphilis by giving the patient malaria, but I've never heard of their curing malaria by giving the patient syphilis. I think that's nice language to use in the presence of Reverend Falk, raged Tasbro. Mr. Falk piped up. I think it's quite nice language, and an interesting suggestion, Brother Jessup. Besides, says Tasbro, this chewing the rag is all nonsense anyway. As Crowley says, might be a good thing to have a strong man in the saddle, but it just can't happen here in America. And it seemed to Doremus that the softly moving lips of the Reverend Mr. Falk were framing, the hell it can't. This is by Sinclair Lewis. It can't happen here. Actually, a really good section. As it turned out, I got really lucky. This book is from, I want to say, 1935. Printed by Doubleday, Doran and Company, Garden City, New York. It's funny, not even New York. In 1935. And you know, because that's what it says on the page, right? So I got some nice books. I mean, I bought this on eBay or something for like 10, 15 bucks. But it's an original first edition from 1935 of It Can't Happen Here by Sinclair Lewis. This predates World War II. So, pretty cool. But let's go ahead and get started today. What's going on in Bitcoin? Bitcoin price above $10,000 sees strange premium after $1 million Bitcoin buys. A frenzied period of major exchanges produces unusual phenomena and huge volumes, while Coinbase bows out. And I'm glad they mentioned it. It's in the tweet somewhere. I'm not sure if I'd get to it. But the price of Bitcoin rose around 5%, and the Coinbase.com website promptly crashed again. Now, it was kind of funny in the beginning. I used to joke about the Coinbase website crashing every time the price went up, and it was fun, and I'd give them a hard time on Twitter and such. But is it really going to keep happening in 2020? This company has millions of dollars, rents a fancy office space in the financial district of San Francisco, and can't even get their website to scale? This is embarrassing. And as I've said in the past, it holds back the path of Bitcoin. A lot of times when the price is going up, people want to get to their Coinbase account so they can buy more. If they can't buy more, the liquidity that's held at Coinbase is blocked from the rest of the market. And by the time they get ready to buy, it may have turned over already. And then they're not going to buy more, and then the rally stops. Unless Coinbase hates Bitcoin, has their website crash on purpose. Anyway, I think they need to change the leadership over there. And the new guide's pretty simple. Eliminate the fail whale. Don't let Coinbase crash anymore. Done. BitMEX sees biggest short squeeze in 8 months after Bitcoin's surge. That's fun. They got toothpaste tube in a vice photo art, I guess. Bitcoin's latest move above 10,000 looks to have nullified a significant amount of selling pressure building in the market. The fledgling cryptocurrency saw a bull breakout late on Monday, with the spot price jumping from 9,440 to a 3.5-month high of 10,357. The price rise sparked more than 133 million worth of buy liquidations on crypto derivatives exchange BitMEX, the highest since October 26th. A buy liquidation is when the forced closure of a short position, a bet that the price of the underlying asset will drop. When the spot price moves above a predetermined threshold, it then leads the liquidation engine to square off or close the short positions. Positions are covered by Bitcoin being purchased by the open market. A pile of buy liquidations, such as the ones on Monday night, can therefore cause a surge in market demand for Bitcoin and a price rise. This is sometimes referred to as a short squeeze. In total, more than $430 million worth of Bitcoin shorts were closed on BitMEX, as well as other platforms including Huobi, Binance, OKX, and FTX. Looking at BitMEX data, we can see that the majority of buy liquidations, 120 million out of a total 133 million, happened in the final hour of the day, just after Bitcoin moved above the 10,000 mark. And now, as we've seen this morning, it's back to 9,500. So what a nightmare if you were shorting Bitcoin. As you can see in the upper right-hand corner of the chart, the price rose just above 10,000, cashed you out, then went right back down to where it was previously. Ouch. Exponential volume growth can see Bitcoin match major assets. Bitcoin is still far from the status of macro assets, but is catching up relentlessly, says Coinmetrics State of the Network. All facets of Bitcoin trading volume are growing exponentially and can easily match major asset classes. Bitcoin volume growth exponential across the board. Institutions considering enter the space should first survey the landscape and make a determination of which exchanges, markets, and assets they feel comfortable transacting in. Bitcoin as an asset class is extremely promising. They just keep saying the same thing. Okay, so 3 times they've said that Bitcoin is experiencing exponential growth. Let's move on. Maybe they write a better article next time. Bitcoin could be about to surge to $10,000. No, $100,000 after stock to flow update revealed. Yeah. Update. So he's changing it. China's digital currency could challenge Bitcoin and even the dollar. We've known about the digital yuan for a while now, but it's getting real, as they now say authorities are testing a new kind of money in 4 cities. People in China are, let's see. Let's get to the meat. Is there any meat here? It's the same thing as before. They're working with Alibaba and WeChat, WePay, some of the other apps to include the digital yuan. It is exciting news, but it's also copycat news. If China's copying Bitcoin, it must mean Bitcoin's really onto something, right? First mover BSV doubles in 2020 as idiots write headlines. It doesn't matter if you double from such a low. Look at this. They've lost money. They've doubled from the floor. It's not a great double. I don't know that you're really winning devotees. This is where you were. This is where you are now. It looks like you've actually lost money. Yes, if you bought the incredible bottom, it's gone up. But bad headline, CoinDesk. I'd watch for that. Meanwhile, the price of Bitcoin is down 0.91% in the last 24 hours, with a last of 9,485, a high of 10,398, and a low of 9,150. That's $1 for 10,549 satoshis. Volume was unusually high, with the market rising above 10,300 and dropping back all the way to 9,150. 29,781 Bitcoins changed hands, well above our normal volume of 3,000 to 5,000 Bitcoins, maybe 10,000 on a good day. This is triple that. Market continues to lean long with 80% heading that way, down slightly from 83%. Bitcoin dominance creeps up just a little with 66.09% of the market heading that way. Check out the Mad Bitcoins fundraiser where we've got 69 donations. Thanks so much to our most recent donor from May 31st, 26,144 satoshis. Very cool. And if you'd like to donate now using the Bitcoin QR code on your screen, you can do that. We also accept Bitcoin over the Lightning Network. Here's a QR code that would donate $10 to help support this show. I guess it's valid for 174 seconds, so time is running out. But thanks so much for your donations and supporting this show. Okay, so we're going to talk about the news. Yeah. Let's talk about the news. What should we say first? Well, remember when we thought it would be better if the president said something? Remember when we thought that you could just go out there and kind of repeat the platitudes, just the excuse me, a bit of a cough today. But just repeat the platitudes, do the Bill Clinton I feel your pain. That would work, right? You just go out there 5-10 minutes, feel the pain, and then, go back to hiding in the bunker. Pretty standard, right? Piece of cake. Well, he didn't do that. He didn't do nothing yesterday. He did a lot more than nothing. So we're going to get to it in more detail probably, but really briefly, yesterday the President of the United States said that he would be activating the 1807 Insurrection Act, which is an act instated by President Thomas Jefferson in order to quell insurrections and rebellions, usually implying foreign armies and such. Used only a couple of times. Its most recent and most prominent usage would be by President Dwight D. Eisenhower, who used it to integrate the schools. So they took the National Guard into, say, a state like Arkansas that wouldn't allow integration of schools, and they forced the integration of schools. So that's the last time that it was really used. And now the president is claiming that he's going to use it, that he will override the will of the state governors. There's a bit of a legal issue here. Currently, the governors would have to ask for the National Guard. If the president does truly activate the 1807 Insurrection Act and not just say he's going to do it like he did with the Defense Production Act, it's possible that he could override those governors and send National Guard troops anyway. So if you're looking for a military dictatorship, this is it. We've reached the line. As he was speaking, as the president was speaking, when he said the word, deploy the troops, when he said deploy, the troops outside began clearing the peaceful protesters from the back street of the White House. They used tear gas, flash grenades, they had heavy shields and clubs, and the protesters were completely peaceful, occupying the space. It was stunning. It was really amazing. Like, when you're speaking, would you want people screaming and crying, the sounds of bangs and, grenades going off, things like this during your speech? Well, apparently he did, because they had those people cleared out of that street. Then after the president finished his 10-minute remarks, threatening to move the military into anywhere and everywhere in America, he went outside with much of his staff and a true army of Secret Service agents, some who even ran up to the roof where CNN was reporting and without any prior warning took up position next to the CNN camera crew because it was obviously an incredibly unsafe situation. And the president and his crew walked across the street that the protesters had been formerly occupying. And the president stood in front of the Church of St. John, the famous Church of Presidents, being that it's so close to the White House. Many presidents have gone there to pray for religious ceremonies and such. And the president stood in front of this boarded up and slightly burnt out church without asking the priests or the rectors beforehand that he would be making a visit, without informing them. And he held up a Bible backwards and upside down for a photo op. And that was it. He smiled at the camera. He looked up and down. He looked left and right. There was a couple of different options. He called in his crew, his press secretary, Kayleigh McEnerney, his trusty Attorney General, William Barr, a couple of other guys, had them stand next to him, and they took another very odd, strange, very forced photo op in front of this boarded up and burnt out church. Then he walked across the street back into the White House. That was it. He attacked American citizens with tear gas so that he could have a photo op. That's it. It was taxpayer money paid for the troops. Taxpayer money bought the tear gas canisters. Taxpayer money paid for the Secret Service to escort him across the street. Incredibly risky. I don't want to say anything negative, but certainly it had a Zapruder film feeling the whole time. You just kept waiting for it to happen, and I'm happy. It's good it didn't happen. I mean, that would probably make things worse. But yeah, for a photo op, he tear gassed peaceful protesters in the street. So, I made some tweets about this last night at like 4 a.m. or something, just kind of laying it out for people. You have a choice now. You can be on the side of the candidate who tear gasses American citizens in the street for a photo op, or you can vote for someone else. You can not vote. You can not check that box. But I think if you don't ask your friends this, if you don't kind of tell your friends this, that they're voting for someone who tear gassed American citizens for a photo op. I mean, it's one thing to say, yeah, Trump's been rich his whole life. He's never had to struggle. He's never had to work. He's never starved. He's never known anything that most of American people know. But it's another thing to say he demonstrated it. That he tear gassed people and that he rushed them with guards with big shields and big clubs and that he moved them over a block so that he could take a picture. You're going to vote for that. You're going to support it. You're going to tell people, I donated money to the guy who tear gassed Americans so that he could take a picture. I've seen some other stuff. I saw some Instagram influencers. Instagram, that's actually not bad. But yeah, Instagrammers. And you know, pretty girl, workout clothes, boyfriend following her. And they were taking pictures in front of some smashed out stores. And it seemed very odd. I don't know why anyone would want those pictures. But at least they didn't smash out the store themselves to take the pictures. At least the Instagram people on the street didn't tear gas any protesters out of their way so they could have a clear backdrop for their picture. This guy did. And he didn't have any empathy in his speech. And he didn't talk about the causes. And he didn't talk about the injustice. And he didn't promise solutions. He didn't say things were going to get better. He actually told us all that it was all going to get a lot worse. He told us all about this Antifa terrorist group and basically declared all of the American people terrorists. I've seen lots of tweets saying that in World War II, my grandfather fought for America, and we were Antifa. We are anti-fascist. We are Americans. So I don't think this is a good idea to label all Americans as terrorists. I do think it was an inevitable result of 9/11. We talked about it all the time back then, and we're talking about it now. That yes, one day they would rise up and they would say, you know the problem with this country, you know the problem with this democracy, it's the people. The people are the problem. So now they're going to give that a try. So I don't know. You want to do the news? You want to watch the movie? Let's try the news. Then we'll watch the movie. Here's a reminder that earlier this month, these different group of protesters with different color skin are pushing the police officers, physically confronting them, physically touching them. These protesters are also heavily armed with machine guns and such. Look at this. The cops will not hit them for anything. And now, as you see, the cops suddenly have learned how to solve their problems with violence. Sadly, this example here is a much better example of community policing than we're seeing today. The police officers here, by not hurting the white, heavily armed protesters, are setting a good example that, of course, they later broke. Ice-T stands with the people, always has. And it's pretty amazing to think about a 20-story tower flying into space and then landing itself upright. Here's a little bit of the footage of the Falcon 9, the main stage of the rocket going back to Earth, and as the author of the tweet said, landing upright. Look at oh, here we go. Magnificent. Amazing. When I was a kid, we were told that was impossible. We were told that couldn't even happen, and it was okay for the space shuttle to just dump its fuel tanks into the ocean or into the atmosphere. This is a much better solution. Congratulations to SpaceX. Truly amazing. All right, so before the president made his speech declaring all Americans terrorists and deploying the military, the day started out pretty normal. President made a phone call. Now, it's very strange. I've seen a lot of reports, and I eventually did see some official articles, and we don't know what they talked about. But the president talked to his pal Vladimir Putin yesterday. That's good, isn't it? They were talking about the G7 meeting that's coming up. Of course, President Trump, amiable, kind, gentlemanly fellow that he is, completely forgot about that whole trouble with Hitler invading the Sudetenland. Russia invading Ukraine. He completely forgot about that. And he said, boy, oh boy, Russia, would we love to have you in the G7 again. I know we took you out because you invaded your neighbor and took territory from them, something that hasn't happened since World War II. Sudetenland, Austria, Poland, let him have them. So yeah, he wants them back in the G7, and we don't know what else they talked about. But after the president got off the call with Putin, he was as if a man possessed. He was a man with a plan. Suddenly, he'd gone from hiding in a bunker and turning off the lights, trying to make sure the trick-or-treaters don't come. There's no more candy here. You know, you just leave out the bowl. Maybe they'll just take a few pieces each. Most likely they just dump the bowl in. But he was down in the bunker. He was very safe, and he turned off the lights. But no, today, different president. Today, charged up. Today, president after phone call. Tell us, president after phone call, dictator, what do you want us to do now? He called up the governors, and he said, most of you are weak. And the quote started to leak out in the media. Oh, bad news in Las Vegas. The Drew Hotel and Casino, previously the Fontainebleau, the empty casino and hotel that's just sat there since 2008, is going into default. The company that was trying to fix it has failed. And it's once again over for the Drew or the Fontainebleau. So, sadly, the governors didn't like very much what the president said and promptly leaked the sound from their meeting. So, here we have the absolute truth. We have the sound of the president. Many people have said that he sounds unhinged, that he doesn't sound well. I will tell you definitely that he is taking the protests personally, that these are not protests about the death of George Floyd or the rest of the injustices that have been held on the black community over the years. I'm going to try to start saying black instead of African American. I don't know. People say that's acceptable. I don't want to get in trouble, but whatever the right thing is, I'm saying that. And yes, he's back, and he wants the officers to dominate. Let's listen to this angry tin pot dictator who says he's the president of the United States. I don't really believe it, but here we go. Let's see what he says.
I have no idea. New York's finest. They got to be allowed maybe to do their job. I don't know what's happening in Manhattan, but it's terrible. And because it's New York, because it's Manhattan, it gets a lot of press. So they really spend a lot of time on it. But New York has got to have to toughen up. And we'll send you National Guard if you want. You have the largest police force in the country, 40,000 people, I understand. But what's going on in New York is terrible. It's terrible. Of all the places. What went on last night in Los Angeles with the stores and the storefronts is terrible. No domination. You have to dominate. Yeah, go ahead, Phil. Something's right. In Manhattan, I have.
No domination. You have to dominate. He's not talking about the events in the street or the African Americans or the black people who've been killed for nothing. He wants the troops to dominate. In New York City, where police officers have been running people over with cars, in other places where they've been randomly breaking windows, randomly shooting tear gas at people, shooting rubber bullets at reporters, hitting reporters with tear gas canisters. All of this, he wants stronger. He wants harder. He wants to dominate. The enemy is the American people here, the peaceful protesters who are standing out against injustice, the people who are actually standing for law and order, the people who are saying that it was wrong of the law to kill George Floyd. They're the enemy. They're the ones in the street. They're the ones that need to be dominated. So the governors didn't take this well, and that started out the day. Pretty much everyone took their chance to remind President Trump that he'd been hiding out in the bunker and that no one believes in this strong talk anymore. It's just talk. Shout out to Richard Feynman. This is the difference between information and knowledge. And knowledge is all connected. Information is just woo. So earn some knowledge. Even before his speech, it was the largest National Guard deployment in history, surpassing Katrina with 66,700 soldiers and airmen activated for domestic operations. Approximately 45,000 are supporting the COVID response and 17,000 responding to civil unrest. Also, during the phone call from other audio files obtained by CNN, President unloaded during his call with governors and law enforcement. What happened in the state of Minnesota? They were a laughing stock all over the world. I've never seen anything like it, and the whole world was laughing. It's always about the personal insult, right? They were laughing at us. Most of us are okay with that. That happened a lot when you were kids, right? And you had to learn how to get over it, how to be like, yeah, it's okay if people laugh at me, but I do what I think is right. I try to do the right thing. And, if that turns out to be funny, well, it's still the right thing. Like Buddhism says, right thought, right action. You do the thing. You try to think of what Mr. Rogers would do, and then you do that, right? And then you feel good because you did the right thing. You don't have to worry about it. But apparently he's not doing the right thing, and the world's laughing at him, and it's a problem. Says, Minnesota was an experiment. First part was weak and pathetic. Second part was domination. Speaks like an 80s wrestler. And now we're getting into some more bad stuff. So this is just like The Purge. I don't know if you guys saw the movie The Purge. I saw all three of them. I could tell they were important. But this woman, apparently off camera, we didn't get to see. But these people in the Mercedes-Benz were apparently handing out bricks to black people on the street so they could get in trouble. And this lady isn't having any of it.
Bitch, don't give no group of black men no brick that don't do nothing, all right? Push the fuck up. Go home. Why would you give that to them? They gonna get in trouble. You stupid. You a retarded bitch. All of y'all. Why the fuck would you give that to them? That shit is wild disrespectful. I don't give a fuck about your friends. I'm talking about this white bitch giving a group of black men a brick to throw. You know that shit can get them killed? You know that. Just having that shit can get them killed. Y'all find yourself sensational. Go in the fucking house while I kick everybody's ass. Go in the motherfucking house while I slap everybody's glasses off their face. Fuck yeah. That's some bullshit. What the fuck is that?
They just sitting there waiting to give somebody a brick.
Wait for a black man to walk by so you can hand them a brick.
And that's pretty much like The Purge there, right? They're just tricking the people. Here, take this brick, get arrested. Break that window, get arrested. And we've seen many different, completely bizarre, almost video game-like brick drops where people have left an entire pallet of bricks in a downtown area, implying that the protesters should use them to break windows. Another video showed a brick being dropped every 3 or 4 feet, as if someone had went along with a wheelbarrow, conveniently dropping a brick off every 3 or 4 feet so that people could use them to break windows and get in more trouble. So we do have something strange going on out there, but it doesn't seem to be coming from the protesters. Additional audio from the president's call with governors. They need to get much tougher. You're going to get overridden. You need to dominate. If you don't, they're going to run over you. You're going to look like a bunch of jerks. Again, with the personal defense here. He doesn't want to look like a jerk. That hurts his ego and his feeling. When America looks bad with these protests, it's just about the optics. It's not about the details. A man was killed. His family misses him. Communities torn apart by seeing a man killed by police officers in the street. It's not about that. It's just about the optics. The only reason that even matters probably to this guy is that there's a video of it. That changes the optics. That makes them look bad. And as we know, the worst thing in the world that can happen to you is that you look bad. I mean, killing people, taking away their rights, smashing them, poverty, losing your job, that's nothing compared to looking bad or someone laughing at you. If you look bad or someone laughs at you, you should stop everything else that you're doing and focus on that. Feeding the sick, feeding the homeless, volunteering at the church, helping out the hospital. Forget all that. Somebody laughed at me. Somebody said that I looked like a jerk. Hulk smash, right? Hulk rage. Or we could be adults and we could learn how to control our feelings. And we could just say, it doesn't matter if people laugh at me. It doesn't matter if I look like a jerk. As long as I am doing the right thing. As long as I do the best possible thing. He also said, you've got to arrest this people. And you can't do the deal where they get 1 week in jail. These are terrorists. These are terrorists. They're looking to do bad things to our country. They're Antifa and the radical left. I don't believe that's true. And the governors don't believe that's true. And the video from the events show that that's not true. Certainly, as the night gets darker and darker, more of these strange, dressed in all black people who brought hammers to the protest. You're not a protester if you brought a hammer, right? I had a fantastic driving instruction teacher back in the day, and she said, you can bring a baseball bat as long as you have a ball and a glove. That's why you could have a baseball bat in your car for protection. As long as you have a ball and a glove, it's fine. There's no reason to have a hammer at a protest. There's no situation where you're like, good thing I brought the hammer. You're a looter. You're a rioter. You're destroying things. I don't know what group they're with. They're dressed in all black. They could be Antifa. They could be white supremacists dressing in all black. They could be agent provocateurs for the government or another government. They could be paid. They could be volunteers. I have no idea. But I do know, if you pay any attention at all, you can clearly see the difference between the looters. Again, looters are just running into open stores, right? They just want stuff, and that's deplorable in its own. But then there's these other people who are opening up the paths for the looters. Umbrella Man in Minnesota showed up and smashed all of the windows of the AutoZone with a hammer. Smash, smash, smash. Took him about a minute and a half. Smash, smash, smash. Then he walked away. Other people looted the AutoZone. Other people burned down the AutoZone. Different groups. And if you can't see the protesters, the peaceful protesters, the ones who were standing outside of the White House before they were attacked with tear gas and armored police, you're not really looking at what's happening. You're not looking at reality. You're just believing what you want to believe. President Trump said, this is a movement. We found out they're delivering supplies to various places in various states. If you don't put it down, it will get worse and worse. And again, in another reality, where this is an evidence-backed person, they could give us information about what he just said here. They are delivering supplies. Great. Is this the bricks? Is this the pallet of bricks? I mean, I think it would be pretty easy to trace back which companies have bricks, which companies had brick deliveries in the last 2 or 3 days, especially to non-existent construction projects in the middle of American streets. That should be pretty easy to track down. I'd love to hear about it. Why not release some information? I don't know who Antifa or white supremacists or black bag, agent provocateurs, it's a French word. And I don't know who they are. I don't know where their money comes from, but obviously the FBI should. They should be able to find out where these bricks came from, who put them there, and then we'll find out who these organizations are, right? Connect the dots. Simple, easy, just like 9/11, right? After 9/11, they said a bunch of people shorted the airline stocks as if they knew the airlines were going to go down on Tuesday. And they said they were going to find out who did it because they'd tell us who shorted the airline stocks. Oh, but they never did. One person listening in on the president's call with governors called his words and tone unhinged. Shout out to UFC fighter John Jones as he takes the spray can away from one of these dressed all in black fellows. Now, again, these guys could just want to smash some stuff. Like, kids like to smash things, you know? They like to spray paint on things. They don't have to have ominous political motives. And it's not like everyone doesn't have a black hoodie in their closet, right? You don't have a black shirt.
It's not the way, man.
Watch this here. This is great. There you go. That's what you do. And yeah, I ain't doing nothing. Yeah, what are you doing with a spray can? If you bring a spray can, if you bring a hammer, if you bring a gun, if you bring any kind of offensive weapon to a peaceful protest, you're no longer part of the peaceful protest. You're something else, right? And whether you get dealt with by the protesters or by the police officers or by the armored police or whoever it is, somebody has to take care of these people. And they have to separate them from the peaceful, normal protesters. Look right here. Thousands peacefully protesting and kneeling in Washington, D.C., remembering George Floyd, chanting, "Stop killing black people." Why isn't this video viral? Why is the media only interested in talking about isolated acts of vandalism and theft? And this is what the organized, or well, not organized, but what the peaceful, nonviolent protesters look like during the day.
Black people! Stop killing black people! Stop killing black people! Stop killing black people! Black people!
This is the same street behind the White House that the president would later have cleared of peaceful protesters. This building right here on the left is where the president will later walk by. You can recognize some of the graffiti from what's going to be a very, very famous photo that will come up later. But clearly, doesn't seem to be any Antifa there, right? It seems to be a lot of concerned people who are upset over the killing of George Floyd in the street by police officers. It's incredibly reasonable. Existential Comics writes, "If I woke up tomorrow and my boss told me that today at my job I had to shoot rubber bullets and throw tear gas at people protesting racism because one of my coworkers killed someone in cold blood, I would simply quit that job and do something useful like stock grocery shelves." These people can walk off. There was a point in Washington, D.C., where in between the madness, the protesters, and one of them, very brave, was right up there on the line talking to the police officers, trying to tell them, that we are people too, and that they don't have to do this, and that they could just walk off. There'd be a hole in their line for a second, and another soldier would come up and fill it. But you can just walk off and go home. You can just lay down your armor and your troops and your weapons, and you can walk off and go home. You can get a different job. You can do something else. Remember the Nazis at Nuremberg? They said, "Why did you do this? Why did you do these horrible things?" And they said, "We have to pay the mortgage." They weren't necessarily horrible people, some of them, but they had to pay the mortgage. They couldn't think of a better plan. They couldn't go on unemployment. They couldn't risk starving or eating spaghetti or whatever you got to do to survive. They weren't going to do that, so they just kept beating and killing and rounding people up. So now you have a choice in America. If you're going to keep doing that, if you want, and if you want to talk to your family, if your family is police officers and they're out smashing heads, or they're military, they're army, you could try to ask them. I mean, I don't know if it's going to do any good, but you could try to ask them, and you could tell them at least there's an alternative, right? There's another option. A lot of us, by choice, work in jobs that don't require us to kill other human beings. I guess, maybe you didn't make a conscious choice, but I certainly did. I knew long ago that there was a group of people going around where they take an oath to each other, and then it's okay to kill. And I wasn't going to join that group at any level. I just had no interest in it. Shout out to hodler.rocks. He's made some more excellent woodcut three-dimensional art here. Check it out. He's going to give it away with the help of Max Hillebrand and Wasabi Wallet. So if you're interested, check it out. Check him out on Twitter at hodler, HODLR .rocks. He's made some very cool art. I'm fortunate to own a little piece here at the house that I picked up from England. So The African American business owner who was killed last night, 2 nights ago at the protests, David McCarty, was a Louisville business owner. He owned a restaurant, and he used to give out free food to cops. And he was shot in the crowd. He was hit by a rubber bullet. I don't know the exact details, but he was killed by the rubber bullet, by the supposedly non-lethal weapons. As we'll show you later on, these rubber bullets are supposed to be shot at the ground first. It's supposed to be more like a piece of shrapnel that would scare you, like a rock skipping. You know, it would lose most of its energy when it hits the ground first, so that when it hits a protester, it won't be as hard. But what they're actually doing today is they're shooting them directly at protesters. So they're using the non-lethal rounds in a more violent way than they could, perhaps if they had better training, or perhaps if they didn't want to hurt people. It's a pretty awesome miniature collage here by Cold War Steve. Let's see if we can get a bigger image of it. You can see on the left, looks like Adolf Hitler is taking a phone call. And if you look over here on the right, it looks like President Trump is taking a phone call from his bunker. And it's pretty neat. They've got Steve Bannon down there. There's a strange man with a sword coming in, so I don't know what's going on there. But yeah, they also brought the Resolute desk down to the bunker so that he could feel comfortable, have the same desk that he works on upstairs. You know, just some art, really nice art. Also, they had to make it really fast. Whoever did this must have had a lot of it pre-ready. But shout out to Cold War Steve, Cold War _Steve, breaking it up for us this morning with a little bit of art to distract us from the horrors of the world. Here's a New York police officer pulling his gun on protesters. That's a gun. Yeah, he's got the gun out right away. We're going to rewind a little so you can catch the beginning of this exciting non-peaceful action. Boom, right there. Gun is out. Holster on the left, gun is in the left hand. Threaten, threaten, threaten. Threaten, threaten, threaten. I'm a big man. Threaten, threaten, threaten. Did I just lose my job? Pat him on the back. He just lost his job. Can we get rid of that one? Can we get rid of this guy? Here we are. Threaten, threaten, threaten. I've got a gun. And again, who's the terrorist here? The police officer or the people running away? Which one is Antifa? Is it this guy? And then he's like, oh my God, I just pulled my gun on American people. I was so scared. I was so scared that I violated and bypassed all of my training. Everyone knows you don't pull your gun unless you're ready to kill, right? Was he ready to kill those people who were standing in the street? The ones with the bicycles, the ones with the masks? And then his buddy pats him on the back, says, it's okay. You only went crazy for a second. You didn't shoot anybody. It's fine this time. Just let him keep working. We had more bad news, or true news, I don't know. Dr. Michael Baden, renowned medical examiner on George Floyd's autopsy, shows that Mr. Floyd had no underlying health problem that contributed to his death. He was in good health. The cause of death is asphyxia, compression of the neck and back. Why is this important? Well, it's shocking to say that the official police autopsy, coroner or whoever did it, medical examiner, said that Mr. Floyd had a heart problem and just would have dropped dead anyway. And everyone said, really? Really? You're a medical examiner and that's what you want to say? Really? Really? And then they had a separate doctor do it and we got the truth. And now we're in a position where the medical examiner needs to be fired. Every time you find people acting improperly, presumably for racist reasons, you fire them, right? That's what you do. And we just make a list. We just come back to it afterwards. We say, hey, did we get them all? What about this one? And you know who else did that? They did that after the war too. They just kept looking for them. Why did the other autopsy say different? Doesn't make any sense. Shout out to SpaceX. What an amazing decade it's been. In 2010, they had the Falcon 9, the cargo dragon. 2012, docked with the ISS. 2015, they landed that booster like we just watched this morning. 2016, a sea landing. 2017, they reused the booster. 2018, they came out with the Falcon Heavy. And 2019, the Starlink. And then, as we just saw, 2020, the Crew Dragon launch, the first human beings in space from a private corporation. It's pretty impressive from SpaceX. Truly amazing engineering and technological achievements. Steve Smith says that Trump lacks the intellectual ability to process what is happening and why. He lacks the mental composition and fortitude to make smart decisions in a crisis. He lacks the moral authority to speak to the nation at a moment of crisis. America is in chaos and without a president. More about the governor's call. The sooner you blank and dominate the battle space, the quicker this dissipates and we can get back to normal. Dominating the battle is a terrible strategy that'll make this last longer and be worse. This was pretty great. This guy's been political in the past, so we kind of expect it. But Spurs coach Greg Popovich calls Trump deranged over response to George Floyd protests. Popovich continues in an interview with The Nation magazine saying, "It's unbelievable. If Trump had a brain, even if it was 99% cynical, he would come out and say something to unify people. But he doesn't care about bringing people together. Even now, that's how deranged he is." Popovich continues, "It's all about him. It's all about what benefits him personally. It's never about the greater good. And that's all he's ever been." "It's so clear what needs to be done," Popovich added. "We just need a president to come out and say simply that Black Lives Matter. Just say those 3 words. But he won't, and he can't. He can't because it's more important to him to mollify the small group of followers who validate his insanity. But it's more than just Trump. The system has to change. I'll do whatever I can do to help because that's what leaders do. But he can't do anything to put us on a positive path because he's not a leader." Excellent statement from Spurs coach Greg Popovich. The governors began pushing back at President Trump's violent rhetoric towards the American people. Governor Jay Pritzker and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer criticized the president for his comments on the George Floyd protests. So did Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York. The protests may derail an expected strong opening for Las Vegas casinos. Yes, it would have been an awful shame if the casinos were operating these last few nights because the protesters no doubt would have taken a route through the casinos and caused absolute chaos, as well as the mixture of people standing out front of the casinos to watch the protests who likely would have been caught up in the protest and smashed just for being tourists. It's not a good look for a tourist town when you're smashing heads and shooting tear gas at journalists, as they did in Las Vegas. A man is dead in Louisville after the police fired on a crowd. What we know, as we talked earlier, this is likely the death of the restaurateur who had a sign, "Cops Eat Free." This is the visual that will define the entire failed Trumpian experiment. When his country needed a leader, Donald Trump turned off the lights and hid under the bed. Oh well, I suppose it's time. Time for a thread on the Reichstag fire and how the Nazis used it to consolidate power and eliminate all civil rights in Germany. The Reichstag burned 27th of February, 1933. Hitler, Goering, and Frick seized upon this to create their dream of a police state. 1 day later, the Reichstag fire decree was passed. Sections 114, 115, and 117, etc. of the Constitution are suspended until further notice. Restrictions on free expression, freedom of the press, privacy, warrants for house searches, etc. are also permissible beyond the legal limits. The next section of the decree talks of incarcerating anyone who incites disobedience or provokes or incites an act contrary to public welfare. This made it simple to round up offenders with no court involvement and throw them into camps. The Reichstag fire decree also specifies the death penalty for such crimes as treason, poisoning, arson, serious disturbance of the peace, or conspiring to kill a member of the government. Perhaps the removal of civil liberties was part of what Hitler meant when he said, "Give me 4 years," in this poster. Actually, he achieved this in less than 8 weeks. The fire decree was only the first step, however. A month later, the Reichstag passed the Enabling Act, the cornerstone of the new dictatorship. The party detained 107 opponents first, then SS troops occupied the Kroll Opera House, temporary quarters, to intimidate those left. The Enabling Act, or Law for Alleviating the Distress of the People, allowed the Nazis to write laws outside of the usual constitutional method. The Supreme Court did not challenge it, and from then on, Hitler, Göring, Frick, et al. Wrote laws at their own convenience. The Reichstag, under Göring's leadership, changed the rules of procedure to pass the act. They reduced the quorum needed and jailed as many opponents as they could find. Göring declared as present anyone absent with no excuse. Some had already fled. The original signature page from Wikipedia. I wonder, was there rejoicing in the Chancellery that night? The passage of the act meant the effective end of the Reichstag and the actual end of opposition. Other parties became illegal in July. It was the beginning of a long, dark night in Europe. 70 to 80 million people would die in the coming war. If you've read this far, the real question is, could anyone have stopped this? That's also the most relevant question for the U.S. today. We can see the parallels with history, but can we do anything to prevent this from happening again? Louisville's police chief has been fired in the wake of the police killing of local businessman David McCarty. Here's an animation that shows Bitcoin's price rising to infinity as the rest of the world's value is being sucked into the Bitcoin black hole. Mad Bitcoins has predicted this for many years. Oh, side note, The Hunt is hands down the best film of 2020. I've watched it 3 times already. I'm not getting tired of it. I'm getting more into it. It's a super fun film about a bunch of people dropped off in the middle of the woods and a bunch of people that are then going to hunt them. It's pretty much all you need to know. It moves really quickly. It plays with the narrative. It's tight. It's funny. It's violent. Kind of a slasher revenge picture, if you've ever seen any of those from the 70s. But check out The Hunt. Best film from 2020. And I am still working on my quest to watch all movies released in 2020 because there's not that many of them. Military-style vehicles have moved onto Pennsylvania Avenue near the White House. We can see the large troop carriers packed with troops. They're moving past the guardhouse of the White House. One of the guardhouses was temporarily set on fire yesterday. That absolute edge of the fence there. As the commentary says, I worked in the White House and I've never seen anything like this. This does not look like America. This looks like a scene from Tiananmen Square in China in 1989. The military are moving in. Please note, because of Washington's D.C.'s unique status, they're a district, not a state. This deployment does not require local authorization. So the president has used a loophole to bring the military into Washington, D.C. Breaking news, officers involved in the shooting in Louisville last night, the killing of David McCatty, were either not wearing or did not activate their body cameras. There is no video of the shooting last night. This is a violation of LMPD policy. And you know what you do? You fire them all. If you didn't turn on your body camera, you're fired. If you all didn't turn on your body camera, we're going to get some temporary police over here from the other nearby counties because you are all fired. That's what you do. So far, they fired the chief, which is a good start. If they didn't wear their cameras, and look, I even said it on Twitter, fire them all. Fire them all. Breaking, Houston Police Chief Art Azevedo has a message for Trump. On behalf of the police chiefs in this country, please, if you don't have something constructive to say, keep your mouth shut. Sadly, the president did not heed his advice. Shout out to Boris. I can't believe I'm on this guy's side. Just in, any push by Trump to readmit Russia to the G7 would be vetoed by the UK. Ooh. So you don't get everything you want. Also, they say Canada is likely to veto as well, so that's multiple votes. That's not going to change. You don't get to invade Ukraine and then be welcomed back into the community. At least not right now. Falcon 9 returns to Earth. We watched this, but we watched a different version. There, look at that. That's a 20-story building. Perfect. Perfect landing. Amazing. Scientifically incredible. The Louisville mayor just fired the police chief. That's good. Los Angeles has an interesting budget opportunity coming up. The city budget is due tomorrow. They're going to put $3 billion, or 54% of the budget, to the Los Angeles police, the ones who run them over with cars and smash their heads and shoot tear gas at them. We've seen the cops the past 2 days. They have enough money. Call and email council members and implore them. They have an emergency meeting to redistribute. They really should. 54% of the budget goes to police. And then when we have a real problem like this, their plan is to just smash people. It's not a good enough plan. Here's a protest, as I expected, in Dam Square in Amsterdam. Look at the size. The entire Dam Square, it's actually called Dam Square, is full. It's peaceful. They even look spread out a little. I'll bet they rode bicycles to get there. Shout out to Amsterdam, showing solidarity with the United States and with the murder of George Floyd. Is this Antifa? Is Antifa also in Amsterdam? I mean, these protesters, are they terrorists? They're also protesting in Berlin, in Tokyo, in London. Are they Antifa? Are they terrorists? Well, I mean, in Germany, they might be Antifa. They might be anti-fascist, you know? Like against the people that did this to us in World War II, you know, against that. These videos show that the police aren't neutral. They're counter-protesters. And David Wallace Wells says, counter-protesters isn't strong enough. These cops see themselves as putting down an insurrection, fighting a civil war against the American people. That the protests are largely non-violent doesn't matter, since they are aimed at the institution of police force, insisting that force should not be exercised with impunity, and that those doing so not be granted immunity amounts for cops to an attack, which, given history, it is. It is common now to suggest that the protests of the BLM era have revealed American cops to be what they always were. Obviously, they have. But those protests appear to have radicalized police as well, making them feel even more like an occupying army, even more comfortable performing as a force of terror, and much less apologetic about being seen as such. If you're married to a police officer who's been out there smashing up heads for the last couple of days, it's a great time to get a divorce. You can just walk out. It's just that easy. We should end qualified immunity for the police officers so that they could be sued in civil court personally when they deprive people of their life or their property. And then things started to get worse. Word spread that the president would be speaking from the Rose Garden at 6:15 p.m. Shout out to Andrew Yang. Pretending that it's working is not working. Yes, we actually need a solution. Scott Dworkin writes, Trump is about to come out of hiding and speak in the Rose Garden. It's gonna be terrible. Joe Biden put a statement out, once again sounding incredibly presidential and a clear alternative to the maniac in the White House. In this moment, the very soul of America is at stake. We must commit, as a nation, to pursue justice with every ounce of our being. We have to finally make real the American promise that all men and women are not only equal at creation, but throughout their lives. Continuing up on the story of the murder of David McAtee, Louisville business owner. He owned a barbecue business that gave free meals to cops. But they shot him with a rubber bullet and they killed him. Louisville mayor just fired the police chief after learning that the officers did not record body camera footage of the fatal shooting. The troops outside the White House attacked before the speech, before the curfew, 30 minutes before the curfew. Then they stopped. Then, at a key point in the speech, watching it again, it turned out to be the word deploy, they moved forward again, almost as if it was scripted. Trump just defended the Second Amendment in his rant. It's one of the most awful and tone-deaf statements he's ever given. He just made things worse. Don Lemon on CNN said, "We are teetering on the edge of a dictatorship, and the president just declared war on the American people." And as we announced earlier, Trump is deploying troops nationwide under the Insurrection Act of 1807. America just ended. Putin wins. And for those of you who think that it might be fine if America breaks up into smaller states or smaller groups of states, any destruction to the overall America is a big win for Russia, a big win for China, a big win for anyone else in the world who's not being broken up into parts. America is becoming weaker. It's a big benefit for the rest of the world. Truly amazing watching this in real time. Non-violent protesters were moved off the street so the president dictator could stage a photo op, happening live now. And then we found out later it wasn't just us. It wasn't, just left-wing Tom talking about this and all that. Everyone agrees. This is what happened. This is what they did. They physically attacked human beings with tear gas and with soldiers, with troops, to move them a block so the president could walk across the street and take a picture. Nothing cynical there. Those are the facts of the situation. Those are the absolute facts. You can go watch the video. You can ask them. They've already taken credit. They said, yes, we did that. We moved them for a photo op. Yamis Alcindor, reporter from PBS, was there. She says, here's what was happening outside the White House as the president was giving a Rose Garden address and saying he's an ally of all peaceful protesters. Peaceful protesters were tear gassed and attacked by police. You can see she's at the back of the lines. We can see them moving in. It's a convenient tactic to put the press at the back of the line here because they can't see anything. It's just as good as not being there. But don't worry, we've got video from the other side as well. But there it is from the press perspective, the troops moving forward during the president's speech to attack the protesters. Jim Acosta says it's an unbelievable use of military and police force to clear out Lafayette Park of protesters for a photo op at the church. A source tells me that they're going to be clearing Lafayette Park with tear gas because President Trump is going to walk to St. John's Church from the White House. We had a shot right here of the Chiron on CNN. It says, peaceful protesters near White House gassed, shot with rubber bullets, so Trump can have church photo op. Price of Bitcoin past 10,000, but the U.S. is now a dictatorship. So, you know, win-lose, right? Governor Pritzker said Trump's got to go live on TV. Governor Cuomo said Trump used the American military against the American people for a photo op. It's official. The protesters were tear gassed and cleared for Trump to walk across the street for a photo op. Governor Pritzker goes all in on Trump. Says the man is a racist, a misogynist, a homophobe, a xenophobe. He's got to go. It's clear that he doesn't listen to anyone who tells him the truth. This inflammatory rhetoric is bad for the country. He knows no history. Make no mistake, the president declared war on Americans, our Constitution, and our very lives with that speech, and invoking the 1807 Insurrection Act. Congress must act to prevent this. The Posse Comitatus Act, which does not allow the use of the military inside the United States, was enacted to stop this, but Congress must act. And then I was kind of marveling at it, kind of looking back, because, you know, we wanted him to get out there and give the right speech. Like they were saying, the governors was saying, you just get up there and you say, I feel your pain. You say, I understand the anger. You say that Black Lives Matter. And you say that George Floyd was murdered and they should bring his murderers to justice. All of them, not just the one. All of them, the ones who watched and joked while he died. But what a unique and creative way to make things worse. Truly, truly exemplary. Declaring war on the American people, saying that they're all terrorists, combining the peaceful protesters with the looters at the same time that you're clearing the peaceful protesters out of the street so you can walk across it and have a photo. Cops are firing tear gas and throwing flashbangs at protesters in D.C., while loudspeakers blare for citizens to adhere to government-imposed curfew. We're in a fascist state. John Lovett, maybe this is the actor, using tear gas and marching on peaceful protesters to clear the way for a fucking photo op. Disgusting use of power. Disgusting. So far, Don Lemon is the only one on television to say the truth of what's actually happening. The President of the United States of America is on the brink of a full-blown dictatorship under the MAGA regime. We have a fascist president who is weaponizing every dark corner of the American soul to tear this country apart so he can stay in office. And almost the entire Republican Party stands behind him. In 1968, in Washington, D.C., after the Martin Luther King assassination, there were 6,000 arrests. 10 people were killed. The U.S. military deployed in D.C. in 1968 included the 6th Armored Cavalry Regiment, the 91st Engineering Battalion, the 82nd Airborne. So yes, as Lawrence O'Donnell says, we've been here before for the same reason, the murder of a black man. Certainly not my photo, but I did zoom in on it a little bit, and I predict this will be on the cover of Time magazine. My choice for word is undignified. But you can see the president walking in front of that building that we showed you earlier that has now been heavily covered with graffiti, most of it saying, "Fuck Trump." Yet he walks across, ignoring it, to get his photo op. This wasn't the official planned photo op. This is just one that happened on the way. Kind of seems better. Police outside the White House just repeatedly bashed a cameraman as they pushed back protesters live on TV. See right there? Boom, right in the chest. Boom, right in the camera. Hits him, punches him in the camera. Do you think it was a journalist? Do you think it was press? See the size of the camera? See the cost of the camera? What are you going to do when you see the press? Shoulder, hit him with a shield. Real Captain America here. Then, that doesn't work. It's still a human. What are you going to do to the human? Punch him in the camera. Punch him right in the face. Boom, right there. Journalist, press, fuck it, right? And then the people come over and they're like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't be. Oh, no, then look, they hit him with a baton from behind. How powerful, how great your strength is, hitting a person with a baton from behind. If you're a police officer, just quit. Just quit your job. You don't even have to show up. You can text in. Text in, I'm not coming back. This is the area outside the White House that the president had cleaned so that he could have a photo op. These are American citizens and others who are peacefully protesting, who are then attacked by the police under the orders of the president so he can have a photo op.
In every major city in the country and building. Wolf, you got people.
All right, y'all,
on your
take a
screen.
look,
I'm
Don.
sure you
Hold
wanna
on.
talk about now.
This tear gas is now being fired. You can see what's going on. The police.
This has been every
Right outside of the White
major
House.
city in the country and building. Wolf, you got people.
Peaceful protesters not wearing all black, not smashing up windows, didn't bring hammers to the protest, sitting peacefully outside the White House chanting. Then they attacked. The president ordered this attack so he could have a photo op. Anyone hurt in this attack was hurt for a picture. And here it is. This is it. This is all worth it. There on the left is President Trump holding a Bible backwards and upside down. There on the right is Vice President Joe Biden experiencing emotions over what's happening in our country today, breaking down in a church. Kamala Harris, senator from California. These are not the words of a president. These are the words of a dictator. As I said earlier, you can watch it back yourself. The cue for the military to move forward into the protesters was the word deploy. They moved like they were on wires. Over at Fox News, just to check in with the other side, Tucker's covering a single family business that was destroyed. Nothing about the end of America. All about the looters. Just want to distract. Just want to distract. Just want to distract. That peaceful protesters were tear gassed in our nation's capital for no other reason than Trump wished to have a photo op in front of a church looking like Mussolini standing beside his coterie was perhaps the most despicable moment in these awful 4 years. Joy Ann Reid, MSNBC contributor. Shout out to Lawrence D. Arabia. He sends along the video from the Titanic of the one violin player continuing to play while the boat began to sink. There it is. Sergeant Tom says, this looks like something out of the Salem witch trials. You can see the church is boarded up in the back. President looks upset. Our tax dollars were just used to tear gas fellow Americans for a photo op. Later on CNN, we would learn the president tear gassed the protesters and did the photo op because he was embarrassed. People said that he was hiding in the bunker. Anderson Cooper, this is low rent and sad. I can't believe this is what we have. This is the United States. This is what we have. And again, it's all about the emotions and the personal feelings of the insecure and pathetic impeached ex-president. He was embarrassed. Have you ever been embarrassed? I've been embarrassed. You forget to study for a test, or you wear the wrong clothes, or you show up late to an important meeting. You say the wrong thing when you're talking to somebody. Happens all the time to normal people. And the rest of us just have to get over being embarrassed sometimes. We make mistakes. We're human. Most people accept it. They're like, yeah, he's a good guy. Sometimes he screws up, you know? But not this guy. This guy was so embarrassed. It hurt him so badly, people saying that he was hiding in the bunker, which he was. You got to take credit for your own actions. If he wanted to stay up there, all you have to do is you say to the Secret Service, no, I'm not going in the bunker. Other presidents have gone out and met the protesters. Biden had a meeting with the protesters early in the day. Richard Nixon one time in the middle of the night went out, with a handful of Secret Service agents and his butler, and they went to the Lincoln Memorial, and they met with the protesters. And, it's dramatized in the movie Nixon. It's a great movie. You could watch it by Oliver Stone. I've seen it several times. But he met with the protesters. Not this guy. This guy was so embarrassed from his decision to hide in the bunker that he had to go out and make it right. He had to show you that he was strong, that he could stand in front of a church and hold up a Bible across the street from the White House. So he had American people tear gassed so that he could take this picture. Breaking news from Fox. Tucker Carlson says that this is all Jared Kushner's fault, that the proper instincts of Trump have been hindered by Jared Kushner. The wolves are eating themselves. This is like Soviet Russia. Soon, pictures of Kushner will start disappearing. And again, that's historical fact. Stalin went against several of his lieutenants and then later had them removed. Not even with Photoshop. They did it with photo trickery and other things. It looks terrible. He had them removed from pictures, erased from history. Down the memory hole, right? Down the memory hole. Just more people talking about how embarrassed he was. Look at Los Angeles. They've converted the convention center into a military base. It's amazing how fast they can do this and how slow they were to help people out with COVID-19 and to provide health care. It's almost as if one thing is really important to us and everything else doesn't matter. This is pretty great from my friend Stone Kettle on Twitter. He says, I said it once already today, but I'm going to say it again. Those of you who wanted it all to burn down, well, I hope this is everything you wished it would be. Also, fuck you. When the German Parliament building was torched, Hitler rushed to it, stood in front of it with a microphone, and broadcast to the entire country that it was the evil communists and that the fire was a sign from God that he was destined to rule. This, the Trump military speech, the state is at war with the people. And it's not the radicals or Antifa, it's police and politicians, people with power, funded by corporations, going to war with the public. And we can see this video here from Philadelphia. They had trapped the protesters and they were just tear gassing them. The protesters had nowhere to go. They could not escape. The police could have walked in and rounded them up, walked them somewhere else, arrested them. Instead, they just kept tear gassing them. Tear gas is a weapon designed to get people to move. If you have people trapped and you tear gas them, all you're doing is torturing people. Donald Trump is an authoritarian and won't hesitate to seize power or kill American citizens. This is a cycle. We're headed into a deadly, deadly phase. Recognize this threat. Recognize this reality. He isn't a president. He's a dictator in the making. Here's Jenny Durkan saying that Seattle police didn't turn on their body cams when they maced children because they hate the idea of a surveillance state. You know what you do? You fire them all. We also had 2 white armed vigilante groups roaming in Philadelphia, allegedly with the blessing of the Philly police. So they are separating the American people into multiple groups, making us weaker. That's what enemies do. We're going to have more on that later. The Episcopal Bishop of D.C., who oversees the church that Trump just visited, tells the Washington Post she is outraged and that neither she nor the rector was asked or told that they would be clearing with tear gas so that they could use one of our churches as a prop, holding a Bible, one that declares that God is love, and when everything he has said and done is to inflame violence. I am beyond. We need moral leadership, and he's done everything to divide us. Keep that in mind for later. He's done everything to divide us, and has just used one of the most sacred symbols in the Judeo-Christian tradition to continue to divide people. Here's more footage from Washington, D.C. There's another shot of the photographer being punched in the camera, punched in the face, hit with a shield. Real Captain America there. And a little quote from the book we read to you just a little bit this morning. It Can't Happen Here by Sinclair Lewis. The quote is very popular today. It reads, "When fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in the flag and waving a cross." What comes next? What's the end game here? Stone Kettle. We're likely going to end up with a nation that, for all intents and purposes, resembles Russia. And I did warn you. Trump tear-gassed his own people. Pro tip, lock your phone so that the police can't cut off your camera so quickly. I just watched a YouTuber arrested live on TV for filming the police. It was kind of like we all knew it was going to happen. They led her behind the lines, and she kept saying how she'd been there 4 nights and they know her. She then crossed the street following the press. Her last words were, "Please, sir, I don't want to be arrested." It was like a horror movie. She was trapped. She went behind their lines, said she felt safe, and now she's gone. The whole time, we were at home yelling at the screen, "Get out of there! Get out of there!" We should stop calling them rubber bullets. It's a euphemism used by the military police complex to get away with beating people at range for no reason. They are intentionally designed to injure. And here a girl looks like her nose has been broken. She has a puncture wound above her eye. She's bleeding all over her face, all from those safe murder rubber bullets. It was 2014. Representative Matt Stoller was a House aide to Representative Alan Grayson, and they worked on a bill to end the militarization of police. It went down badly, 355 to 62. We were opposed by everyone. Just 6 years ago, in 2014. Bernie Sanders writes, Trump just had peaceful demonstrators viciously attacked. No, Mr. President, this is not a dictatorship. This is the United States of America. Our citizens have a constitutional right to peacefully protest. It's called the First Amendment. And it seems as if the right-wingers on Twitter continue to try to fight against this and to say that it's not true or to distract. It's pretty often you just say, hey, the president tear-gassed peaceful protesters for a photo op. And he couldn't even get that right. He held the Bible upside down and stood in front of a church he never attends. Facts do matter. The fact that Trump spoke to Zuckerberg on Friday and Putin today, but still hasn't addressed the American people, tells you pretty much everything you need to know about him. Leaders who have hidden in a bunker and gassed their own citizens include Saddam Hussein, Adolf Hitler, and Donald Trump. Shout out to Woke on Twitch. I'll probably be watching it again tonight, unfortunately. You just go to twitch.tv/woke, W-O-K-E. They've been doing a great job maintaining a multiple feed screen so you can watch different cities at the same time. So you can really track the protests and see what's happening. Congressman Matt Gaetz wants to hurt Americans who are against Trump. That's what's really happening. Antifa is just his cover. Gaetz should be expelled from Congress and arrested. The wife of the police officer who murdered George Floyd is filing a divorce, and she wants a name change. She is not keeping this murderous police officer's name. There should be more like her. Where are they? Kentucky governor wants public to see footage of the Louisville man shot dead by police during the protest. But of course, as we know, there's very little footage because the police didn't wear their body cameras. Nice. Joe Biden. He's using the American military against the American people. He tear-gassed peaceful protesters and fired rubber bullets for a photo. For our children, for the very soul of our country, we must defeat him. But I mean it when I say this. We can only do it together. Fun fact, on this day in 1927, Trump's father Fred Trump, was arrested at a KKK rally. The cell phone camera has offered more protection to black Americans than any law enforcement agency, court, prosecutor, elected official, or news organization. Shout out to Steve Jobs, right? They had other phone cameras, but he made really good ones. We talked about this earlier. This is how to use rubber bullets. Looks like XKCD or another similar comic strip. Let's pull it up here. This is how rubber bullets are meant to be used. They're meant to be fired at the ground at an angle to reduce velocity and the risk of grievous bodily harm or death. They're supposed to be used from 36 to 72 yards. How the police are using them. Great artwork. Police have been repeatedly recorded firing at protesters and journalists' faces from distances of less than 30 yards. Rubber bullets have more than enough force to fracture your skull, sending fragments of bone into your brain, causing cranial bleeding. Bullets that strike the orbital socket have the force to completely destroy the eye and penetrate the brain, causing death. Since its adoption by police forces around the world and in the United States, rubber bullets have killed 3% of those they injure, and hundreds have been permanently blinded. Let's be clear what happened today, Representative Jason Crow. Donald Trump threatened to send the military to dominate protesters. His advisors referred to our streets as the battle space, and he ordered the military to use force on peaceful demonstrators so he could stage a photo op. The fascist speech Donald Trump just delivered, says Senator Ron Wyden, verged on a declaration of war against American citizens. I fear for our country tonight and will not stop defending America against Trump's assault. This is what he tear-gassed peaceful protesters before curfew for, so he could hold up a Bible like an alien who just landed on Earth while people take pictures. More bad news in the world. Carol Baskin has been granted Joe Exotic's former zoo. As we covered, the copyright case was likely wrongfully decided, with Joe Exotic mistakenly settling with Carol Baskin. Carol Baskin then, instead of just accepting the copyright victory, chose to enforce the victory, taking any and everything from Joe Exotic, who's also a bad guy who killed tigers, but she now has his zoo. 2020 is a dark place. We've got heavy artillery mobilizing at Fashion Show Mall right here in Las Vegas. Check that out. Oh, they've I love how it's clearly a military vehicle, and then someone went to all the trouble. They just stenciled Henderson Police on the side, because that's, protect and serve, like uphold the community. You just stencil it on there. Like, it's clearly a military vehicle. Why don't you, paint it in polka dots or something? Nah, just stencil police on the side. That's great. Andrew Yang, we need a new president. Samuel Jackson, did we just get martial law? Did he just declare war on the public? This is not 1807. This is rebellion. But I think it's about to get all kinds of fucked up here. And I have had enough of these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane. Sorry, I love Samuel Jackson. He's great. Pelosi and Schumer, heads of the House and Senate respectively, tear-gassing peaceful protesters without provocation just so that the president could pose for photos outside a church, dishonors every value that faith teaches us. Fanning the flames of discord, bigotry, and violence is cowardly, weak, and dangerous. As a bishop in the Episcopal Church and as an American citizen, I am shaken watching protesters in Lafayette Park gassed and cleared so that the President of the United States can do a photo op in front of St. John's Episcopal Church holding a Bible. This is blasphemy in real time. Father James Martin, let me be clear. This is revolting. The Bible is not a prop. A church is not a photo op. Religion is not a political tool. God is not your plaything. Louisville mayor just announced that every single officer's body camera was not activated during the shooting last night that resulted in David McCatty's death. Not one. Fire them all. Fire them all. Fire them all. Will other officers be charged? Nancy Pelosi seems to agree. We saw an execution of a person on TV. We saw what happened. A knee to the neck. Breaking news, a car just ran over a bunch of police officers in Buffalo, New York. As we can see here, the police officers are beating protesters, attacking them with dogs, dominating the streets, until... I like the zoom in. Let's go with that zoom. It was also interesting. A person identified the dialect and said that it might be from Yemen. And what a horrible experience to come from Yemen and then to end up in America where this is happening. So they've got their military vehicle. They're feeling very strong, owning the whole street. Uh-oh. Whoa, that car bumped up and down. I think he ran one of them over. Dang. So that was pretty crazy. Of course, we've seen it happen multiple times from the police side. That's the first time we've seen a civilian drive police over with a car. Will it be the last? And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. 2 Corinthians 11:14. Pretty awesome artwork here from Andy, A-N-D-I, Spiral, S-P-Y-R-A-L. It's impossible to spell. But you can see the Statue of Liberty being held down with a gun to her head by Trump. He looks like a snake, and he's violently attacking her. As the caption says, the President of America has declared war on Americans. Oh, we don't often get to do this, but here's our chance to do some Johnny Carson humor. This is, first of all, this envelope has been sealed in a mayonnaise jar on Funken Wagnall's porch for over the last 2 weeks. That's right. This envelope has been sealed, hermetically sealed. Hermetically sealed. And you touch it to your head like this, and you say, answer, you say, Hitler, Saddam, and Trump. Hitler, Saddam, and Trump. And then Ed says, yes, sir. Hitler's, and then you say, open it. You pull it out. You do some flourish. And then you say, name 3 assholes who tried to gas their own people. Hitler, Saddam, and Trump name 3 assholes who tried to gas their own people. Hi-yo! Trump is putting up an 8-foot-tall fence around the park outside the White House right now in the dark of night because he's the weakest coward ever. The President of the United States is deploying the military to perpetrate violence against their fellow citizens because their fellow citizens are protesting unjust violence at the hands of the state. Let that sink in. This is a pretty amazing video. These were looters in Van Nuys. The reporter is noting that the storekeepers are trying to stop the looters. The reporter then goes down and calls the police, says, hey, we need help. And here are the police all ready to arrest the business owners. That's right. They see the scene. They come on up. They say, hey, you've got looters. Oh, they're running away. They're too hard to catch. We're just going to attack the business owners right here. So you can see, there it is. There's the people to attack, the business owners, the ones who are holding their hands up and not running. Oh, they're so much easier to catch. The reporter, breathless, tries to tell the police they're making a mistake, actually risks her own life here.
Okay, sir. They're the store owners. They were protecting the looters, sir.
Whoa.
They're protecting the stores. The looters are over there.
Stand down for a sec, please.
You're losing your looters. They're going down that way. These are the people in the store trying to stop.
Point.
All 3 of them.
Okay, we're putting those in handcuffs right now.
We're putting those.
Where's the looter? Where's the looter?
They're protecting this building.
Where'd the looter go?
So note the military language that the officer uses to the reporter. Please stand down, as if she was an enemy combatant. She was using her words to describe the situation, that they were arresting the wrong people and that they let the looters get away. Once again, the looters were running. They were hard to catch. These store owners were easy to catch. They were right here. The reporter really doesn't understand what's going on these days and puts her life on the line right here.
Description.
Black, white, African Americans.
To show you how easily.
So there it is. Be careful when you call the police, because they might just arrest the wrong people. Dr. Steve Woodsmall, United States Air Force retired, writes, I am calling on all military leaders to refuse deployment against U.S. citizens. The Posse Comitatus Act limits federal troops' deployment on U.S. soil and forbids using them to enforce domestic laws. It is forbidden to follow an illegal order. And we'll get the ropes ready for you at Nuremberg. We'll get them ready. We'll warm them up. Elizabeth Warren, senator, writes, the President of the United States tear-gassed peaceful protesters in order to clear the way for a useless photo op outside the White House, just after vowing to activate the military against our own people. Lives and our democracy are in danger. Robert Reich, former Labor Secretary, writes, where is the Congress? Where is the Supreme Court? Where are the mayors and governors, living former presidents? Where are the university presidents, foundation heads, religious leaders, corporate leaders, union heads, editors, and publishers? All must stand up to Trump's madness. Scott Dworkin writes, every silent Republican is in on it. Democrats are making the same mistake they made in 2016 with Merrick Garland by waiting for November. The only conversation Democrats should be having is how to use the powers of the House and Democratic-held states to stop Trump now. And I really think that's true. He's got to go today. If he doesn't go today, it says that everything he did yesterday is okay. Trump declared war on American citizens. What is to stop him from using the military to detain Joe Biden or members of Congress? Until yesterday, most people would have thought I was being dramatic. until we all watched American citizens tear gassed so he could have a photo op. We have finally some good news. Shout out to Austin, Texas, and the internet. The homeless man who had his belongings burned by InfoWars got new stuff. Let's hear from him.
They blessed me with a tent, a new mattress, an air mattress. They brought me food. They brought me clothes, money. You can testify to that. Thank you, Austin. I love you, Austin. You're the best. And I got no hard feelings at all. It's a bad place at a bad time.
God bless, man.
All right, good stuff. So, homeless man was made whole. Yesterday, they burned his mattress to make a point on TV, and today, the real citizens, the community of Austin, got together and took care of this man. So, very good. Shout out to Whale Panda, really nailing it here. It's 2020, and Coinbase still goes offline with a 5% Bitcoin move. Meanwhile, they're the ones holding almost 1 million Bitcoins. Get your coins off Coinbase. Trump had protesters attacked because he thought he looked weak after it was reported he was hiding in his bunker the other night. I'm not joking. That's actually why he did it. It's been confirmed that a Las Vegas police officer was shot during the protests last night. A second person was also shot in a different part of the city. Remember how some of us said Trump is a racist and he would try to exploit the chaos to declare an emergency, unleash the military, potentially declare martial law, and either postpone or suspend the elections to stay in power? Oh, we were all crazy. Lousy headline from the New York Times. I'm not sure why they're doing this. This is really weak. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, "You've got to be kidding me." And the New York Times headline is, "As chaos spreads, Trump vows to end it now." I would have went more with President Trump declares American, military dictatorship, or what we went with here, Trump gasses Americans for photo. That worked pretty well. Shout out to Kevin Hart, actor and comedian. "I'm watching so many decisions be made to stop the looting and the rioting. National Guard has been called in. Curfews are being moved around. How about arresting the other officers who were involved in the death of George Floyd? How about justice?" Canada also says that they will block Russia's re-entry into the G7. Attacking your neighbors and taking their territory is not acceptable. Here's the Riverside police walking by a car and smash. Why not just break a window? You can see right there the officer's arm goes off. And this is what you expect from children or teenagers, delinquents. They just can't help but smash things. Why not just let this car be? It's parked in a parking space. Instead, they smash out the windows as they walk by. These are the police. I definitely agree with this. Don't think that because a video has 12,000 retweets that it's going to be around as evidence forever. They'll take the internet down. Your shitty uncle will sneer that it never happened. In a decade, you'll be telling folks about what you remember, but it'll be apocryphal. Download videos today. Some people are questioning whether tough police tactics against demonstrators are actually making the violence worse rather than quelling it. You don't say. Tense situation in Swan Street in D.C. Cops surrounded protesters and started firing pepper spray. A resident let more than 100 protesters take shelter in his home. "I'm not letting any of these kids out of my sight," he told me over the phone. And there were some pictures later of the house. just packed with people, sitting on everything, just sitting everywhere, doing their best to make the best out of it. And it was especially touching and horrifying to remember the other reality we're in, that all the protesters who were sheltering in this kind man's house were wearing masks because of the fucking virus. And it wasn't just to hide their faces from facial recognition. They had to keep wearing them inside. So even when they were experiencing the ultimate in hospitality, hosting 100 random people in your house so that they don't, get attacked outside, the ultimate in kindness, truly something that Jesus would do. And they still had to wear the masks out of respect to not spread the virus, but still just a strange, strange image. Representative Julian Castro from Texas: the president of the United States just tear-gassed peaceful protesters for a photo opportunity. He must be replaced. Using the Bible as a prop while talking about sending in the military, bragging about how your country is the greatest in the world, and publicly mocking people on a daily basis is pretty much the opposite of all that Jesus stood for. Jesuit priest James Martin. Civil rights leaders went into a call with Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg tonight with low expectations. They were not disappointed. Mark didn't comprehend/accept the history of voter suppression and that Trump's tweets could stoke violence against demonstrators. So much for that. It's a good idea to let a bunch of tech bros run the most powerful and important countries, most powerful and important companies in our world. It would be a shame to have someone with some kind of history or some kind of literature background. Senator Bob Casey: I want to be super clear about what has happened tonight in Washington. The President of the United States deployed tear gas, rubber bullets, and military personnel on peaceful protesters so that he could cross the street for a photo op. There is no excuse. Scaramucci, formerly of the Trump administration: Trump fired tear gas and rubber bullets on peaceful protesters so that he could get a photo op in front of a church that didn't want him there, holding a Bible from which he cannot name a single verse, all to prove he's not a coward hiding in his bunker again. A perfect encapsulation. None of the 99 people arrested during downtown Cleveland's riots were from outside Ohio. Countering the Cleveland police chief's statements, none, 0 out of 99, were from outside Ohio. There were no foreign people from other states. These are local protesters upset about the murder of George Floyd. And then, of course, they're more upset by being attacked by tear gas and being shot at by rubber bullets and being run over by cars. It's almost like the police are making it worse. Sad news from Las Vegas. An officer was shot in the head at Circus Circus. They're also working on a second shooting that occurred in front of the federal courthouse here in Las Vegas. The officer who was shot in the head at Circus Circus is now on life support. Here's a video from the Seattle protest. The protesters were chanting. They were saying, "There's no riot here. Why do you need your riot gear?" Then the police showed them what a riot looked like. Keep an eye on the lower section right here. This is where the police are going to attack the peaceful protesters with tear gas. You see the police are adjusting the barricade, and there's the tear gas. They're starting to shoot right there at the peaceful protesters. Multiple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all firing, bear mace and tear gas right at the people right there at the front of the lines. firing flashbang grenades into the crowd, very close range. Flashbang, flashbang, flashbang. Peaceful protesters attacked by police in Seattle. Flashbang, flashbang, flashbang. Tear gas, more, more. Right into the crowd. There ain't no riot here. Why don't you take off your riot gear? And then the police showed the people who pay them, showed the neighborhoods they live in, showed the end of community police firing over and over and over again against the peaceful protesters. Is this the Antifa? These soldiers dressed in black firing tear gas and rubber grenades on peaceful protesters? Is this the enemy? Interesting news on COVID-19. Evolution pieced together the virus from multiple parts, mostly from bats, but with a key contribution from pangolins. More video from Seattle, where we see a reporter here seemingly on a soccer field, is then attacked by police.
Police now advancing on protesters.
Hit directly by a flashbang grenade. Let's rewind, zoomed out this time.
But we have police now advancing on protesters.
She had a microphone. She had a gas mask. She was talking to a camera. She's a diminutive female. They hit her directly with the flashbang.
Police now advancing on protesters. Oh my gosh, we're moving.
Oh.
We're moving.
Or perhaps a tear gas canister.
On protesters.
This is in America.
Oh my gosh, we're moving.
They just attacked another reporter. Hong Kong extends the ban on gatherings of more than 8 people. This time it covers the anniversary of the 2019 protests, so there won't be any protests. More from Seattle. The cops are out here high-fiving and excitedly yelling, "Wasn't that fun?" about attacking a nonviolent protest earlier. They've all got to go. If you celebrated and high-fived, whether you gave the 5 or took the 5, you need to be fired. You shouldn't be a police anymore. If you're high-fiving and excitedly yelling, "Wasn't that fun?" about attacking a nonviolent protest, you need to be fired. And really, you need to be arrested. You need to go to jail. Watching Trump preen in front of St. John's moments after he threatened to deploy the American military against the American people with a Bible held above his head, I remembered the quote from the book we read to you earlier today, "It Can't Happen Here" by Sinclair Lewis. When fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in the flag and carrying a cross. More footage of this is a police officer this time being run over in New York City. Ooh, that's bad. Ooh, he was going at speed. So it seems as if the protesters can use cars just as well as the police officers. Could be a mistake. Could be a mistake to attack these people. A fire in the basement nursery at St. John's Church opposite the White House is not exactly the burning of the Reichstag, but it does not look like Bill Barr can wait. And there's the footage we already played of the car running over a group of cops in Buffalo, New York. Once again, like the last video, a reminder of what happens when you keep tear gassing American people and laughing about it. It's not that funny, is it? Another shot of the police in Philadelphia attacking the trapped protesters with tear gas. They're trying to climb up that hill and not having any success. They're trapped. Here's a reminder. Remember to put paint in your balloons so it forces the officers to take their masks off and blocks their vision through riot shields. So that's a good idea. I've noticed the clear riot shields. I wondered why. I guess it is a good point, so they can have better vision, so they can time and smash people better with those clubs. This is very strange. The Florida sheriff says that people in Polk County have guns, and if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fire, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of their house with the guns. It's very Christian, very religious. I'll bet he's religious. Don't pay any attention, but the world does not have COVID under control. The world does not have COVID under control. The world does not have COVID under control. We can see right here the daily number of new COVID-19 cases globally is continuing to rise. So just pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. So war zone in St. Louis. Just a complete breakdown. Fires, shooting, chaos. Looks like a movie. That's just crazy. And I woke up in the middle of the night, wandering around Twitter in a daze, looking for pieces of America. Stephen King writes, "Dear fundamentalist Christian Trump supporters, if Obama had held up the Bible backwards and upside down, you would immediately have called him the Antichrist." Eliza Skinner writes, "If actual bad apples killed dozens of people, there would be a national recall on all apples." We watched this. This was the Seattle protest where the police attacked the peaceful protest with tear gas and flashbangs. President Trump finally got the war he wanted. It isn't in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, or North Korea. It's right here in Washington. Robert Reich writes in to remind you that tear gas is a chemical weapon and banned in war. Representative John Yarmouth writes, "The president just declared war on millions of Americans and the First Amendment. He is the greatest threat to the American way of life in our history." Oh, this was a tough one to watch. So this guy looks a little drunk, walks up to the line, gets pepper sprayed in the face, continues smoking his cigarette, and then they flashbang him right in the face. Bear maced in the face, continues to smoke cigarette.
Fuck you!
They flashbang him right in the face. Great job, police officers. And when you do this to one, everyone else sees it. Everyone else knows what happened.
Oh! Fuck you!
Looks to be about from maybe 2 or 3 feet. 2 or 3 feet, he just shoots him in the face.
Fuck you! y'all! Fuck y'all!
President Trump's mother seemed to know about her son. She said, "Yes, he's an idiot with zero common sense and no social skills, but he is my son. I just hope he never goes into politics. He'd be a disaster." And I tried to ask people questions and tried to get them to understand what happened. I see a lot of people are having trouble answering this question. The most common answer is to evade by asking another question. Just say it loud and proud that you will vote for the candidate who tear-gassed American citizens for a photo op. And please feel free to ask your friends today, who is going to vote for the candidate who tear-gassed American citizens for a photo op? And they'll make some kind of excuse and they'll dance around it and they'll say, but Obama did this and George Washington did that and Thomas Jefferson had slaves, and all these other fun little side historical notes that aren't really answering the question. It's a yes or no question. Are you going to vote for the candidate who tear-gassed American citizens for a photo op? Mika Brzezinski writes, Trump using a church not to pray or read scripture. It was an awkward photo op where he held up a Bible in the air and pointed at it like it was a Trump stake. People were pepper sprayed to make space for this. He is at best a mockery during this deeply depressing time. And it's pretty simple to me. No, I will not vote for the candidate who tear-gassed American citizens for a photo op. Maybe you should think about it and ask your friends. The facts are not in dispute. The president tear-gassed American citizens for a photo op. It's okay to switch sides when confronted by new information. Who is going to vote for the candidate who tear-gassed American citizens for a photo op? Not me. And we have a very special bonus video to play us out today. This is a classic from the Internet Archive and the United States War Department from 1947. It's called Don't Be a Sucker. It's only 17 minutes long, and I suggest you watch the whole thing. It's incredibly prescient for 1947. Let's check out Don't Be a Sucker. Oh, come on, Internet Archive. How about some sound? You're killing me here. Looks like it's site's muted. One more time, this time for sure. From the War Department, 1947.
Henry here got on the train with $200. He couldn't see any harm in a friendly game of cards. What if the other men were strangers? And take Joe Collins. He's got a nice wife at home. But he met this girl at the bar, and she looked, after the first couple of drinks. There's a good old-fashioned word for people like this. We call them suckers. And there are other people. People who stay up nights figuring out how to take away what they've got. There are all kinds of games. Mike here, for instance. He's got everything in me. He's young, he's healthy, got a job. And he's got plenty of food. Big factories to make things a man can use. Big cities to do the business of a big company. And people, lots of people. Enough to work the farm and build the factories, dig the mines, run the business. All kinds of people. People from different countries with different religions, different colored skins. Free people. They can live together and work together and build America together because they're free. Free to vote, to say what they please, go to their own churches, to pick their own jobs. Yeah, Mike's got something, all right. He's got America. But there are guys who stay up nights figuring out how to take that away from him.
I happen to know the facts. Now, friends, I'm just an average American. But I'm an American. And some of the things I see in this country of ours make my blood boil. I see people with foreign money. I see Negroes holding jobs that belong to me and you. Now, I ask you, if we allow this thing to go on, what's going to become of us real Americans?
I've heard this kind of talk before, but I never expected to hear it in America.
This fellow seems to know what he's talking about. What are we real Americans going to do about it? You'll find it right here in this little pamphlet. The truth about Negroes and foreigners. The truth about the Catholic Church.
Do you believe in that kind of talk?
I don't know, makes pretty good sense to me. And I tell you, friends, we'll never be able to call this country our own until it's a country without. Without what? Yeah, without what? Without Negroes. Without alien foreigners. Without Catholics. Without Freemasons. You know these things. What's wrong with the Masons? I'm a Mason. Hey, that fellow's talking about me.
And that makes a difference, doesn't it?
These are your enemies. These are the people who are trying to take over our country. Now you know them. You know what they stand for. And it's up to you and me to fight them. Fight them and destroy them before they destroy us. Thank you.
Before he said Masons, you were ready to agree with him.
Well, yes, but he was talking about... What about those other people?
But in this country, we have no other people. We are American people.
What about you? You aren't American, are you?
I was born in Hungary, but now I am an American citizen. And I have seen what this kind of talk can do. I saw it in Berlin.
What were you doing there?
I was a professor at the university. I heard the same words we have heard today. But I was a fool then. I thought Nazis were crazy people, stupid fanatics. But unfortunately, it was not so. You see, they knew that they were not strong enough to conquer a unified country. So they split Germany into small groups. They used prejudice as a practical weapon to cripple the nation. Of course, that was not easy to do. They had to work hard to do it. You see, we human beings are not born with prejudices. Always they are made for us, made by someone who wants something. Remember that when you hear this kind of talk. Somebody is going to get something out of it, and it isn't going to be you. This is not classroom theory. I saw it happen. I saw it first in Berlin in 1932. 5 young men that I knew were standing in the crowd listening to the Nazi speaker. Eric was a Catholic. Anton, a student of mine, was a Jew. Heinrich owned a small hardware store. Karl was a farmer. And Hans was an unemployed metal worker.
To all Bavarian Germans, I say it is time you inherited the nation which rightfully belongs to you. To you alone belongs the glorious destiny of the greater Germany. The Nazi Party will provide land for the farmer, work for the worker, and profits for the small businessman. Who is getting these things now? The Jew. The Jew who has stolen our nation and our birthright. Who makes all the money and takes all our jobs? The Jew! He must be shunned. He must be ostracized. He must be eliminated. And the Catholics. We don't want our great nation run by a foreign church. We Germans will know what to do with these people when the time comes. They and their faith must be destroyed. Then there are the Freemasons. In Germany, we have no place for secret societies. There will be only one society, and that is the Nazi Party. There will be no secrecy about that in the new Greater Germany.
One by one, he attacked each minority and he split them off one from the other. These men were all fellow Germans when they came here today. Now they were split into rival groups, suspicious of each other, hating each other. They were being swindled, all of them. But the man who was really being fooled was Hans. He was pure German, according to Nazi standards. To him they promised everything, and he fell for it. That's how Hans became a Superman. They gave him a uniform and they pumped up his ego. He wasn't just a little fellow out of work anymore. He was a member of the master race. Hans and thousands of others like him, all playing a sucker's game. They gambled with other people's liberty, and of course they lost their own. A nation of suckers. Hitler needed these people. There was lots of work to be done. There were trade unions to be smashed, because unions were organized and might offer resistance. There were many political parties in Germany. These the Nazis destroyed. They were determined to smash every organization where people might band together and resist them. There were Jews to be beaten and killed. The Jews were not powerful, but they were a convenient excuse for all the nation's ills. And besides, a Nazi party member could not take over this man's store. Hundreds of Catholics were put in jail because the Catholic Church had strength and could resist the Nazi drive for power. They had split the nation into 100 pieces, and then one by one, they had destroyed the pieces. Over these broken pieces, the Nazis rode into power. One party, one nation, one religion. These men had won their struggle for power. They now ruled all of Germany. But still they had trouble with their oldest and most persistent enemy, the truth. They found that truth does not die easily, and so they decided to abolish truth. One great source of truth is literature, so they burned books, 20 million of them. Many great men in Germany who were spokesmen for truth were jailed or driven from their country. Teachers, writers, scientists. Education was discouraged. In 5 years, college attendance dropped 53%. It was forbidden to listen to a British radio program or read an American newspaper. In Nazi Germany, you had to get your information from Dr. Goebbels. He knew what was best for you. The church was one force in Germany still strong enough to proclaim the truth in public. This Catholic priest was arrested the following day on charges of immorality. The Protestant church also continued to try and fight for truth. The Nazis put this man in a concentration camp. There were others who spoke for truth, and I am proud to say that educators were among them.
And what, may I ask, is an Aryan? I don't know myself. But let us see what our present so-called authorities have to say about it. They say he is tall, slender, blue-eyed, and blonde. There is no Aryan race. And more important, there is no master race. There are people who may find these ideas convenient, but science cannot support them. There is no scientific proof that there's any correlation between a man's racial characteristics and his native ability or character. In all racial groups, we find the same range of potentialities. We find idiots and geniuses. We find criminals and philanthropists. We must judge each man as an individual, and not by the color of his skin, or his eyes, or by the length of his nose. Come in, gentlemen. It's comfortable. And remember that there is no master race. That is a scientific truth. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying.
And so for all practical purposes, truth had been abolished in Germany. A lot of my German friends wondered what had hit them. How did it happen? Where did it start? It started right here. And this was where it could have been stopped. If those people had stood together, if they had protected each other, they could have resisted the Nazi threat. Together they would have been strong. But once they allowed themselves to be split apart, they were helpless. When that first minority lost out, everybody lost out. They made the mistake of gambling with other people's freedom. Now let's see how those bets paid off. Karl the farmer was gambling on a better life for himself. What he got was extra hours of back-breaking work, as much as 100 hours a week. He was forced to stay on his land and produce what he was told to produce, because now Hitler was preparing for war. For Heinrich, who owned a hardware store, the bet didn't pay off either. 104,000 small businesses were closed in 2 years. And for Hans, conditions hadn't improved any. He had a job now in the munitions factory, but he worked long hours for little pay. The working conditions grew increasingly bad. And even though he didn't like the job, he wasn't permitted to leave it. And when Hitler decided the time was right, Germany went to war. Not by declaring war, but by a carefully prepared sneak attack. Once again, Hitler needed Hans to do his dirty work. Hans was an expert at brutality this time, and Hitler had decided to use Hans and his brutality against other peoples, the Czechs, the Poles, the French, the Russians. But in the crucial test of war,